Good afternoon, Surface Warrior Nation, and thank you for joining us for this afternoon's SDDC COVID-19 Virtual Live Town Hall. Today we will hear from SDDC's senior leadership, Commanding General, Major General Stephen Farmen, Deputy to the Commander, Mr. Michael Hutchison, and Senior Enlisted Advisor, Command Sergeant Major Rocky Carr. We'll start off with some introductory remarks, and then we'll get right into answering your questions. If you do have a question, please just type it into the chat box. We will do our best to get to everyone's questions, along with a number that have been pre-submitted. Now, sir, it's time to introduce our panel and Major General Farmen to kick us off.
All right, thanks, Fred. So, hello, Surface Warrior Nation. Welcome to my office. It's good to see everybody out there. Of course, I got Mr. Mike Hutchison, the Deputy to the Commander, to my left. And to my right is my battle buddy, Command Sergeant Major Carr. And we're all going to have opportunities to chime in today, but what we're really looking for is a conversation. I'm sure there's a lot of things on your mind out there. These are unprecedented times. We've talked about that. I know you all are watching the TV, and you can see the moments that we are in. But look, the bottom line is I just want to thank each and every one of you for what you're doing every day to keep Surface Warrior Nation going, keep us afloat. And by the way, the Army is very much in motion. We are still making our mission happen. We are fully open for business. And that's because we got great teleworkers that are doing what they need to do, and we're putting the right people at the right node in the right posture to deliver the right effects. And we are taking a very measured approach in everything that we do to make sure that we keep COVID standards and discipline at the forefront of keeping us all safe. And by doing that, we kill the virus, we're killing COVIDs, and if you're teleworking, you're helping us do that as well. Our priorities remain the same. It's to protect the force and mission assurance. And by protecting the force, we protect the nation. And the nation is counting on us every day to make sure we deliver to that end. The last point I'll mention, because I really do want to get to questions, is this. And we'll get into questions about coming back to work and when does that happen and things of that nature. But one of the things I wanted to put out there up front is right now I think where we are most vulnerable is complacency. If we get complacent, if we get caught up in the moment, or we get frustrated because the COVID is going on and on and on and things of that nature, we have to fight complacency, because that is where the virus will live. And that's where the virus can catch fire. If we let our guard down, if we get lackadaisical in our standards and discipline at any moment, that's where the virus can jump in and cause havoc and can get in between protect the force and mission assurance. And those things are all interrelated like a Venn diagram. They're all kind of hovering together. And so I would ask you to avoid complacency at all costs. Stay very vigilant, just like you are, and we will continue to lead our way through this. And I very much look forward to your questions. And with that, I'll push it over to Mr. Mike Hutchison to see if he has any opening comments. So I look forward to talking to everybody.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, teammates. Mike Hutchison here. I just want to kind of echo a little bit of what General Farmen had to say. Appreciate everybody doing the telework thing. You're getting the mission done even though you're teleworking. We really do appreciate that. And appreciate your patience as we work through this. I know sometimes working from home is not necessarily the best arrangement, but you're getting the mission done, and you're staying safe, and you're keeping your family safe, and we do appreciate that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Major Carr.
Hey teammates, thank you so much first off for everybody tuning in, and then thanks for the tremendous effort you've been doing lately with our COVID Standards and Discipline Initiative. You guys are crushing it. You're mitigating risk at every turn. You're accomplishing a mission and doing everything that we need you to do. And it just doesn't come in a box like that. It's a lot of hard work. We really appreciate everything that you do. And I would just say, like we said last time, just remember that your geographic place that you're coming to work, whether it's home or you're coming in here to the office or at the down trace, does not equal your importance. Every one of you are important, and you're doing a great job every day. And I think in regards to COVID standards and discipline, in the next few days, we're going to release some some codified standards that'll help you kind of mitigate risk and try to lay some framework out for you. And so we appreciate you tuning in once again. We appreciate your questions. And I would say give all the hard ones to General Farmen.
Good one.
All right, gentlemen, we'll go ahead and kick off with our first question. This is one of the questions that was pre-submitted, and it is as follows. For SDDC internal events, have the Army Ball and SDDC Organizational Day been canceled already? And if so, could SDDC have some sort of an informal function over at the Scott Air Force Base Events Center when we return to celebrate both the Army's birthday and our return to work?
Yeah, so let me just say that, unfortunately we did have to postpone the Army Ball, and we will find a way to acknowledge the Army's birthday in some way, shape, or form, whether we cut a cake virtually and celebrate with all of you like we're doing right now online. We'll find a way to do that, but obviously in light of the circumstances, and everything is conditions based here, but I think it's safe to say that in June we are not going to be at a place where an Army Ball and all of us coming together is going to be possible. So we did push that out, but we will certainly celebrate the birthday in some way, shape, or form. It is now scheduled for the 18th of December. And that's really going to be more of a holiday ball versus an Army Ball, and then we'll circle back around in the summer of 21, and then we'll be back to a normal Army Ball at the Missouri Athletic Club. And then the summer picnic, which is always a big event for the team. I've enjoyed that the last couple of years. We always get a great turnout there. That is going to be now projected out to the fall. So we'd like to think we'd get enough leeway in our ability to bring people back to work and so on and so forth. Again, everything being measured and conditions based. And we will make a decision in an appropriate time, but right now we're looking at fall for the summer picnic, shifting to a fall picnic. So we're gonna continue to make decisions like that along the way and keep you very well informed, as we move down this path. Thanks.
All right, sir, we do have a question from Angie Hemphill, an SDDC employee, that asks, will SDDC be extending the telework and stay-at-home order to match the Illinois governor's order through 30 May? And if so, how will that affect SDDC's battle rhythm events, such as our morning stand-up meetings?
Yeah, so we obviously pay attention to the state we're in and what those orders are that come out, but we're on a military base, so there's other certain things that apply there, and we take direction from the tower too, so there's policies that come down from the Department of Defense, and we adhere to those, quite frankly, and they're usually very well nested with the national intent. So we gauge off of Department of Defense policy, and I would just say that we're going to extend the telework as long as it makes sense. And I just can't emphasize enough, it's going to be conditions based, and it's going to be a measured approach. In fact, right now we are working very diligently, and we are in certain meetings, and I know at the highest levels, the Army as a service and DOD as well is starting to put out guidance as to what is the best way for us to come back to work and to bring people back to work. And we're going to take a very measured approach, and we're going to be coming up with a playbook that we can use to begin to bring people in. We can't just flick a switch and say, okay, everybody back to work, because that would not be prudent. In terms of battle rhythm events, we've tried to do I'd say over 90%, 95% are on the low side. There are some that we still have to do on the high side. And when we do have those moments, we work through supervisors to coordinate who can come in and be part of those events. And we'll just have to lead our way through that moving forward. And Angie, thanks for the question. And you're such a great teammate out there all the time, helping us win in so many ways. And thank you for everything that you and your team is doing, to help us deliver readiness and lethality. Did anybody have anything else to add to that?
No, other than virtually, we have begun to pick up some of our battle rhythm events. And so Angie mentioned specifically the stand-up. And so now we've got those kind of calendared back in again, and we'll do that virtually from our neutral corners, so to speak. And so, Angie, I think we're teeing up some of those, and we're coming back into our battle rhythm virtually, and I think that'll help us in the long run to get a rolling start once everybody starts to come back versus a start from a stop position. So,
That's
good
great.
question, a great question.
It's a great point.
Yeah, the one thing I would add is not only are we maintaining more or less of the battle rhythm we had before, but we're actually adding to the battle rhythm in terms of like the contract management reviews. That's being folded into the schedule now, and those will be on a recurring basis every month.
Yep.
Gentlemen, we have another question that's very closely related to the previous question. With certain regions relaxing stay-at-home orders now, how will that affect our teleworking directives within SDDC? If our region eases restrictions, will teleworking cease for us?
Yeah, so again, I think everything is conditions-based. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's conditions-based and a measured approach and a phased approach. So, there's no blanket hand wave to that. Okay, once, the state says we're going to ease restrictions, that means, everybody can come back to work. We're still going to have to be vigilant, measured, and smart in how we bring everybody back. And we are actively right now working on what the game plan is with all the branches and sequels, if you will, so that we have a playbook that we can begin to run these plays to make sure we're bringing the right people in at the right place, in the right posture to deliver the right effect. And I think that is really, I said that up front, but I think that is the rule of thumb we're using, not only internally here at the headquarters, but even out at the nodes where we have people executing port operations. And we will stay very connected with you through your supervisors. Clearly, communication is going to be insanely important at all levels, and we are going to continue to do the best we can, to push the information out.
Sir, I think what's important to note is that everything we do, every action we take, your two priorities will be uppermost in our mind, and that's protecting the force and then mission assurance. And so, ever how that looks, again, conditions-based and a measured approach, but everything will be under the auspice of protecting the force and mission assurance.
Gentlemen, we have a question that came in through our Facebook Live. This is from Jerome Simmons, Jr. The question is, with COVID-19 in place, how do we mitigate the movement of warriors to their next duty station by transportation means?
Right, so thanks, Jerome, for that question. A lot of policy, obviously we know the stop move policy is out there with some caveats and exceptions, and we will adhere to those, but in some cases where people are going to move to their next duty station, there's an exception to policy process that we follow, and everything is dealt with on a case-by-case basis. And once we've sorted through all the eaches associated with that, and then we will make a decision, and if we support that, it'll go up the chain, gets approved, and then you'll be able to proceed in the best means possible to your next duty station, making sure that we have all the right mitigation measures in place. I don't know if anybody else has something to add to that.
That's
exactly right, sir.
Okay.
The ETP process is the way to go.
Okay.
Gentlemen, our next question. With us facing a new normal in the way we interact, will SDDC be providing the workforce with guidelines on how to conduct business? For example, new criteria for mission-related TDYs.
Right, so another great question from the field, and I would just say that, I've heard a term called, the new abnormal. And in a way, there is a bit, I don't know, well, we'll get back to the new normal. It's really more the new abnormal, and how we lead our way through that's going to be really important. Sergeant Major mentioned in his upfront comments that we are working on what we call COVID-oriented protective posture, and we have levels 1 through 4. So it's going to come out in a chart. It's very cartoonish, but it's going to have a lot of meaningful information on it. This is going to help guide us, through when we bring the workforce back, how many people can you have in the room? What posture should they be in? When do you wear a mask? When do you don't wear a mask? We're trying to simplify this in a logical way so that everybody can understand the rules of the game, and we can all hold each other accountable to that, and make sure we continue to protect the force while making sure we make the mission happen. Is there anything else the team wants to add to that?
Sir, that you're all over. I mean, that's going to help us mitigate risk. That's going to help us set the right conditions, and that's going to level set everybody with the same set of standards, so that leaders on the ground and the individual soldier understand what's required, and then they can audible or caveat off that as needed based on the conditions.
I know we got a blended group out there, from a mixed group, in terms of uniforms, civilians, local nationals, contractors. But if you're familiar with the military, we have a thing called MOP 4. And MOP 4 was when you were in a chemical, biological, radiological environment, you would put on all your gas mask and gear. What we're trying to do is create a COP 4. Again, COVID-oriented protective posture with the same levels, and then just re-engineered to the COVID environment, which is our new operating environment. So it's not going to go away. We just got to find a way to be effective in that space. And so much more to follow on here. So great question.
Sir,
that's another key point, though, that I wanted to mention is we are working on a campaign plan which is going to allow us to be effective on the mission front. And in fact, we set the strategic framework last week for this. And this week, I'm getting a briefing today and on Thursday on how we're going to operationalize that strategic framework. And then it's going to transition to current operations, and we're going to be executing off that. So, it's very much a balance between protect the force and mission assurance. So again, multiple things in motion, that will make sure all the right information gets out to the team.
We'd still like to invite our viewers to ask questions via the Facebook chat window. We do have another question that was pre-submitted. We have seen an increase in remote IT capability over the past month. Are there any initiatives to reduce our footprint during port operations?
Right. So again, I don't want to, right person, right place, right people, right node, right posture to the right effect. That's kind of the litmus test, if you will, that we're using to make sure we don't overload the system. We're not going to flood the system with more people than need to be at a certain node to execute the mission. And when they are at the node, they have to have appropriate COVID standards and discipline in place. And quite frankly, our commercial carriers and partners are living up to the task as well. They're wearing, the appropriate PPE is in place. They're practicing standards and discipline. So our nodes are being very careful in terms of how we're generating the right speed at the node to maintain our mission. Again, protect the force, mission assurance. Is there anything else from the team on that?
One thing I'd add to that is just as we go through this telework journey, I know one of the things that we're going to do is look not only at port operations, but generally what can we learn from this kind of mass telework situation, and what, as we learn things from that, how do we change our future processes? So I would just say more to follow on that.
Yeah.
Our next question, when will we be issued or provided personal protective equipment when we are directed to return from telework?
Yes.
Major, I think
you
that's
want to take
probably
it?
yours.
Go ahead,
Yeah, absolutely.
Major.
So
Yeah.
our HHD right now, locally here at Scott Air Force Base, is working to get the face covers in, the personal protective equipment in for those that will be coming back from telework here. So the answer to that question is yes. Down at the brigades, we already have the requirements in the system for the brigades and the down trace, and they're doing the same thing there. So the answer is yes. When you're directed to come back to work, any PPE that you need to be able to operate, that is already in the motion to get and acquire that and be able to issue that out for the workforce. Good question, though. Great.
Yeah, great question. And we appreciate people that are making masks and doing all the kinds of things that they need to do to help us, kind of fill gaps and seams while we have them. And we've got a lot of good PPE purchases in motion out to the brigades and the battalions as well. So, you know, we've got a good handle on what the requirement is. We have active orders in place. And in fact, those keep getting better and better. They're coming in.
Yep.
Sir, I'd like to join in with just a hey you that came in from Joshua Stevens. He says, good afternoon, General Farmen, go Sox. Understanding
Yeah,
he's
nice.
a friend of yours from
from Korea.
Excellent. We'll go to our next question, which is relating to training. Have the mandatory training requirements changed because we're on telework now? Mr. Hutchison, if you perhaps would like to take that.
At this point, there have been no changes to the annual training requirements, and quite frankly, this telework, some of the training is online, and telework is an ideal opportunity to knock some of that online annual training out. Right now, those DA and OSD have not changed the training requirements that are out there for everybody. If they do change them, and I've not heard that they intend to, but if they do change them, we will certainly push that out. But I would say, take advantage of the time you're on telework. If you've got some downtime, if you will, while you're on telework, knock out some of that online training and get it done. This is a perfect opportunity for that.
And the good news is on that, just to pile on a bit, as we went through the semi-annual training briefs and I got a chance to look at the training stats and some of the online training and the annual mandatory training that's on there, we're doing really well. I mean, you are crushing it out there and taking advantage of this opportunity. And so I appreciate that. That's great work. And again, it's a requirement, it's something that we have to do, and taking advantage of this time is certainly a way to get after doing that. So I really appreciate that. We're doing really well. So yep, still out there, requirement's still out there. We're doing really well. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sergeant Major, I have actually two follow-on live comments to go over a little bit deeper into your PPE question. One is from David Horn, who asks, do you anticipate the need for employees working in the G3 open area workspace to wear masks while working once we return to work?
So, in accordance with the CDC guideline, great question. And so, if you're in an area where you're going to be in a COVID environment and you're going to have to get within that 6 feet, you're going to have to be in a mask. In fact, if we get a certain number of people in the same room, we're going to require people to be in a mask. And so that's all part of the COVID-oriented protective posture guidance that we're going to put out. And I believe, and just hearing that question, it is going to be well worth it to get that out to the field because it'll explain all that. But the question is, yes, potentially, in your workstation, if there is enough people in a room, you potentially have to wear the mask. But we'll work all that out, and we'll have the right algorithms and the right calculus so that it'll be clear to everybody when a mask is required and when it's not required.
And the second question, Sergeant Major, was what about our troops in Iraq?
So the troops in Iraq are following social distancing and everything that everybody else is following. Our troops in Iraq are doing the exact same thing. And they're balancing protect the force and mission assurance. And the CG said it earlier, it's a balance. You have to have one to do the other. And so they're doing it to the maximum extent possible downrange as well.
We have a question from Chris Hybe, who asks, SDDC has been providing system support for teammates using GFM to provide relief, helping Health and Human Services providing field hospitals and protective equipment to New York. How is SDDC going on the offensive to defend the nation?
Yeah, I think, SDDC, I talk about this all the time. Our job is to never lose the initiative. And even though the COVID kind of hit us in the face pretty hard, and we had to go into defense in depth, we are very much looking to regain the initiative. And that campaign plan that I talked about sets the framework for that, and we're going to operationalize it. And, I know Chris Hybe's heard me talk about the left of boom factor quite a bit. Everything about this plan is about trying to look deep and figure out for the next 12 to 18 months, how are we going to fight our way through this? We are right now in a force flow conference to try and figure out how things are going to shake loose from that. The Army remains in motion, so quite frankly, even though we did all kind of get hit pretty hard by the COVID, the Army has been in motion and remained in motion since I think the last stats I saw were D+88. So from like January 28 to now, 16 Brigade Combat Team moves, still rotating people through Korea, through the different nodes, cleaning up what's left in the Defender pipeline, continuing to project the force and receive the force here in the continental United States. That continues with a vengeance, quite frankly. And more importantly, I think right now, we are working with our 4th component teammates to make sure we understand what challenges they're facing so that we can continue to give them the lead time they need to make sure DoD capacity is going to be there for when the pent-up demand shakes loose, and we can strike the balance between the economic challenges and what we have to do to get the Army and the Joint Force back in motion. And there's a lot of churn to be able to make that happen right now, specifically as it pertains to rotation of forces. So I don't think we ever lost the initiative. I know, if anything, we went, with a sense of urgency to flood the system to support anything COVID-19 CONUS, continental United States related, but we never took our eye off the globe either. I don't know if anybody had anything else there.
That's perfect.
Sir, we have a question from another Surface Warrior teammate that brings us back into the office, and that's from Diana Duncan, who asks, have the unmanned offices within the headquarters building been disinfected while workers are gone, or are there plans to do this before we return?
Sir,
you want to take that, Sergeant?
Yes, sir. Yes and yes, Diana. Yes, they've been disinfected while you're gone, and yes, they'll continue to be disinfected. In fact, our cleaning crew, they have really stepped up their game, and they conduct normal cleaning throughout the week, and then they do their disinfectant campaign continuously throughout the building. And it's impressive. What they're doing is impressive. And so great question, but the answer is yes, we're going to disinfect routinely throughout the week, and then we're going to disinfect before you come back. And the other piece of that is what we're doing right now for the folks that work in here. If there is a community device, such as a copier, a printer, or a phone that more than one person answers, every couple of hours we're disinfecting that. Every couple of hours we have the cleaning crew go down and they disinfect every keypad to every door in the headquarters, and every keypad to every door in the headquarters is covered in plastic, so it makes it very easy for them to do that. And so lots of protocols in place in regards to sanitation. Great question, and we're doing everything we can to mitigate the risk here.
Yeah, spot on.
Gentlemen, we have a question from Daryl Hines, who works out at Military Ocean Terminal Concord, who asks, most installations have a safety injury status page or a board at their installations. Should or could we have a COVID-19 board posted to say COVID-19 status for the day or week, such as reporting masks required for personnel entering the installations, social distancing, etc.?
Hey, Daryl, thanks for that. I don't know, I got to give that, legitimately, I just got to give that some thought. We want to strike the right balance in terms of what we put out there. It has to be maintained and updated because you don't want it day in and day out. All of a sudden the information stays stale. Plus, everything is so fluid and conditions-based. We could put something on a sign, and then if it doesn't get changed in enough time, it could present a problem for us. So I think being more digitally focused on that is a good idea. But I'll continue to think that one through. And we do, every day I look at the stats for, what the status of our COVID-19 situation is from quarantine to positive IDs. And so we have a good handle on that internally. And there's also personal information and stuff that we got to keep, mindful of. Sorry, Major?
Sir, in regards to his question about at the gate, and so what we've done, that COVID-oriented protective posture is linked and nested with the HP cons for our installations. And so, sir, you hit it on the head. It's conditions-based, Daryl, and every condition, we cannot be a cookie-cutter solution. But generally, the COP 4 standards that we're going to put out are nested with the HP con. So if you come on and you're at HP con Charlie, then there's some associated mask and social distancing requirements that you're going to see laid out that you can expect to do. But again, conditions-based, and every commander will be able to audible off that plan. Great question, and I think we're going to be able to answer that with the COVID-oriented protective posture product when it gets out.
Anything, Mike? Okay.
So our next question is from Tara Sample, who has a follow-up on our previous town hall when we had talked or had been asked about coming into the office to get certain supplies or equipment to bring home to telework with. Specifically, she identifies an office chair.
Yeah.
What's our current status on that, sir?
Yeah, I think, and Tara can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we said that we would do the best we can. I would urge Tara to work that through her supervisor and see if that can't be worked, and the supervisor could certainly elevate it if there's an issue that we have to personally get involved in. But I would like to be as user-friendly as is possible in a circumstance like that, and I think if we just use the right chain of command channels, we should be able to get it worked. Mike, I don't know if you got anything more on that.
No, you hit it. You got to work that through your supervisor, whether you need, files or something like that, out of the office in order to be able to work on a project, whether you need supplies or particular equipment. Work that through your supervisor, and they'll work a plan with you to allow you to come in and get what you need, and then get back out and go home. Keep in mind there may be certain things that there might be, the answer might be no, you can't take that out of the building, but by and large, I think whatever you're going to want to take, the supervisor will be able to come up with an arrangement for you to be able to get that.
Yeah, and for Tara, I mean, if I miss the mark on that response, just type something up and let me know, and we'll keep working it. But
unprecedented times,
we're
looking at all
so
options.
Again, just let us know.
Sir, we have a follow-up question. This one from Steve McCullum, who has the following comment. The COPP or COP concept makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Is this being developed specifically for SDDC only, or is it something coordinated across the joint force?
Let Sergeant Major take that.
Yes, sir. So right now it's for SDDC. We're certainly going to share it with left, right, up, and down. We'll certainly do that. But again, I think most of it's common sense stuff that we'll be able to kind of level set comms so that everybody's operating from the same sight picture, and then you can be able to audible off that. Specifically, though, it is for SDDC. It's something that we've been kicking around up here and trying to get our people in the right protective posture and something that makes sense. And that just makes sense. And so we'll do that. And if other people want to pick it up, that's fine. The plan, though, right now is to not spread that across the joint force. That's an SDDC internal product.
Yeah, so, kudos to Sergeant Major Carr. I mean, he's really kind of got us out the gate on this and has really, got rid of the blank sheet of paper, put a nice product together. We're getting it staffed. Quite frankly, I think it could become a best practice, if we get this thing out there and operationalized in the right way. So it's great stuff. We're excited about it.
We have another question from Sheila Brown, and this question is, how will expired line badges be handled as far as entering the building, and will SIPR tokens be deactivated?
Okay, I mean, I'll get, clearly if there is a line badge that expires before you're allowed to come back into work, just make sure that gets communicated to the chain of command, and then we will have a game plan to deal with that. And if you happen to have a SIPR token that, I'm not aware of SIPR tokens being deactivated, so unless somebody up here is tracking that.
Well, I think your account will be deactivated. If you don't log in at a certain amount of time, account, I don't know if the token will be, but I know your account will be. So that may be the concern. So we have to take that one on.
But those are great questions, so, we'll push that out to the team and make sure that we have a handle on that.
Yeah,
so thank you.
That's a great question.
We have a question from Bill Buffington, who asks, considering the number of missions has slowed as a result of COVID-19, how will this operational slowdown affect the budget, considering that we operate under TWICF, or Transportation Working Capital Fund?
So, we don't have our G8 team in the room with us here, but I know they're probably up on the net, but we track our TWICF funding And quite frankly, there's an uptick to what we've had to do with regard to doing things differently in the era of COVID. And so we account for those TWICA funds, so we can get reimbursed for that. But quite frankly, I think, as I've already alluded to, the Army and the Joint Force have been in motion really throughout the COVID-19. So even though economically writ large, our commercial carriers and partners are feeling the pinch, there's going to be an uptick in activity inside the Joint Force and the Army as we work to, kind of begin our rotations of forces and things of that nature. So we're not seeing any canaries in the coal mine, if you will, out there with regard to the TWICA. I don't know, Mike, if you have anything there.
Well, prior to COVID, we had noticed that for this fiscal year that the workload was about 15 to 20%. The workload that was materializing was about 15 to 20% lower than what had been forecasted. And then obviously we've had this COVID impact, which we really don't know the long-term impact on workload. Our intent is to go forward and attempt to get changes to rates made for FY21 so that we don't get put in a bad position with regard to the TWICA. Don't know if that's going to get approved or not, but we are going to go forward and ask for that.
Right, no, that's good. I think we'll be positive for 20, and we want to set the conditions for 21. And of course, the TWICA isn't just SDDC; it's all of Transcom combined. So that we're all in this together.
Gentlemen, our next question is as follows. Will I be required to return to the office before child care at the Child Development Center opens or becomes available, or before child care in any manner is readily available in my area?
So, again, I'll let some of my teammates chime in here because I think you have child care. So I'll let Sergeant Major address some of that too, because he's personally touched by it. I would just say case-by-case basis with respect to that. Communicate effectively with your supervisor. If there's unique circumstances, we'll work through it together as a team and do what we can to interface with the wing and everything else to smooth out, any bumps in the road there. That's my best, advice at this point as I look at that. That's a great question, and I'll toss it to you, Sergeant Major.
Yes, sir. So lots of work at the wing or the garrison level. And then at the MCOM garrisons, lots of work there on getting CDCs back and how they're going to do that and what that looks like. And so as they work through that, just like you said, sir, we're going to lead from a good place in our heart. We're going to figure out what right looks like. We're going to work with everyone individually. There's no cookie cutter solution. And I will tell you that for someone that has children in CDC, it's a part of the military experience. It is just a great organization, and then those daycares off posts. It's part of what makes being in the Army so special, is that shared sacrifice often. But we're not going to do anything, I don't think. We're going to make sure we set conditions so that everybody can return to work the right way, and we're going to lead smartly and from a good place in our heart. We're going to figure that out the right way.
I like the way you put that. Lead from a good place in our heart smartly. I concur.
Sergeant Major, I think this next one is in your lane. The question is, I heard the ACFT is suspended. Should I be preparing for the ACFT or for the old APFT? And when should I expect to take my next record PT test?
I've been waiting on this question all day.
Sergeant Major thinks about this all the time.
Yes. And so the best day to do, first off, the best day to do PT are only those days ending in Y, which are every one of them. The answer to the first part of your question, the ACFT or the APFT, should you be practicing for either one of those? The answer is you should be practicing for both of those. The ACFT is suspended until, implementation is suspended until further notice, but it isn't going anywhere, and it hadn't gone away. And so for right now, your APFT score that is current will be current through end of FY20. And at some point, the Army is going to make a decision on when to begin ACFT implementation again. And at that point, the Army will follow suit, and we'll do what we have to do. My advice to you, my advice to everyone out there, though, every day practice those events. For the ACFT and APFT, two of the events are very similar when you're talking in terms of the 2-mile run and push-ups and T push-ups. Those are very similar, and then the leg touch are very similar to the sit-ups. Here's my advice. Every day, find something heavy and pick it up, throw it, drag it, and find you a 2-mile course and run. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine on the other side. Don't worry about that. Just get tired every day. Cool.
I would just add to that, I mean, and Sergeant Major is our, he is the voice on that, but I think, whether it's APFT, so for civilians and local nationals out there, I think staying fit, staying healthy is insanely important in the middle of COVID. I mean, obviously, we're tucked away in our houses, we're teleworking, you can't get inactive, you have to find a way to get out, go for walks, be smart about it, do what you have to do, but now is a time to really, wherever you can, amp up the fitness, stay active. That'll help your psyche, it'll help your mental well-being and everything else, to go out and hear the birds chirping and spring is springing and all that kind of stuff. I know for me, I work out every morning, I go for a run, and I really enjoy that time, and it's quiet, there's not a lot of people moving around, and it gives me time to think, but also smell the roses a little bit in terms of, even with the COVID all around us, Mother Nature and the birds are chirping and the bunnies are running around the base, and there is still life going on in the middle of this. So I just encourage fitness, and all of that.
That's great.
And sir, I'll let the team know that Richard Patton from the 599th Transportation Brigade let us know that the 599th is currently in the second week of a steps challenge across the brigade and their battalions. So they're keeping it going.
That's awesome, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because Sergeant Major and I have talked about this before too. I mean, there's a lot of creative ways that people are getting after physical training. We've seen that, the certain kind of competitive.
Sure.
Sergeant Major, what are some of those?
So the 598th, I think the chaplain has a 100-mile challenge going on with some more events, and the 599th does. I think 595 has one going on. And even in the RPOs, I saw a young leader in the RPO do PRT over Zoom. And so each person's kind of hunkered down in their fight position called their house, and they're getting after it and competing with one another over Zoom. And let me tell you, that's what right looks like. That's soldiers getting after it in a smart, effective, safe way. And I tell you, it almost made me tear up.
Like Peloton or something.
It's like Peloton over Zoom. Yeah.
Right.
No endorsement.
That's true.
Yeah. PAO is in here, so no endorsement for Peloton.
Little lawyers are, so we're okay.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we have another live question that's come in to us from Victor Van Hoos, dealing with telework. And the question is as follows. Given the current expansion of our telework operations and capabilities, even when we do get that good grip on our COVID response, are there plans to continue utilizing a larger telework force when this is all said and done? Or can we expect to return to normal in-office operations as before?
Well, my initial reaction to that, Victor, to that question, great question, is I think the COVID has forced us to reimagine how we do everything. And I don't think we're going to go right back to normalcy. I think we're getting pretty adept at doing virtual meetings and things of that nature. So that's going to change the game. I think we're going to look at things a lot differently in terms of how we handle meetings internally, who should be in the room, who should not be in the room, who's virtually in the room. Whether there's an uptick in telework or not. I mean, all these things are on the table. I think some of them will evolve naturally. And I think, even supervisors, I've had a couple conversations with supervisors that are saying, it's amazing how the workforce has adapted, to these circumstances, and kudos to the G6 out there who has given us the bandwidth to be able to do all these types of things. But it's forced me, and I think all of us, to reimagine what right looks like and how we need to do this. So, I'm going in eyes wide open. I don't know about if you all have something there.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say is that, we've had the ability to telework prior to COVID, but it wasn't a full-time, en masse kind of telework arrangement. As General Farmen said, this whole situation has presented us with a new paradigm, and we're seeing how things work and don't work. So I would say as we go forward, we'll probably be looking at things a little bit differently. I couldn't commit completely to saying that we're going to go to en masse 100% telework all the time, but certainly we're going to think about things differently.
Sir, you mentioned G6 in your last comment, and we have a question that is related to our IT heroes within SDDC. The question is as follows: will the command be purchasing additional laptops so that any employees that are currently trying to telework via OWA on personal computers will have that capability in the future?
Yeah.
So I'll take that one.
That one.
Yeah, so we had prior to COVID, we had a requirement up at ACC Rock Island to buy additional laptops for the command. That requirement got put on contract in early April, and that was a contract action valued at more than $1 million. It's for the entire command. The vendors got about 90 days for them to deliver the laptops, and the intent is to push that out as soon as they're delivered, push them out to the gaining locations as soon as they're delivered, so that everybody who needs a laptop will have one. And R6 is working with the down trace elements to ensure to make sure we got a handle on their requirements, to make sure that they get the new laptops delivered and fielded to the folks who need it.
Thank you, sir. We have another question from our live audience. This is from Terry Specht, who asks, for people who are here without family, can there be relaxed standards of where people can work from? And I believe this involves location of teleworking. Mr. Hutchison, if you want to take that one.
So I will take that one. You know, right now the telework policy says something to the effect that you've got to be within a certain distance of the headquarters. I think you've got to be able to be back here and be back in the office in 2 to 4 hours, something like that. You know, we've had some requests come in from people who are wanting to telework outside that distance, and we're looking at that on a case-by-case basis, because not every set of circumstances is the same. In some cases, we are allowing folks that are outside that radius to telework a little bit further, and in some cases, we're saying no. So we're looking at it on a case-by-case basis as to what makes sense.
Yeah, there's 50-mile rules. There's stay-in-place orders. You know, so this is where we balance, you know, policies on the books with DoD with, you know, the state policies in terms of the ability to travel between states and all those types of things. So we have to triangulate a lot of different things to accommodate certain circumstances. So it requires us to do what Mr. Hutchison said, and that is case by case. We'll take a hard look at it, and then we'll come back to the fundamentals if we need to.
Gentlemen, we have another question, but before I ask that, I'd like to remind our audience and let you know that we have just a little bit over 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
We're exceptionally pleased with the amount of interaction that we're getting from our live audience.
That's good.
And we'll keep those questions coming, and we'll continue to have our SDDC Surface Warrior leadership provide those answers. Next question is as follows. Can soldiers or government civilians who are working at the ports receive hazard pay for their work during this time while we're dealing with COVID-19?
You want to talk about
Yes, sir, I can take that one. So I sat in a meeting the other day, and this came up. And so right now, this is at the department level, at the DOD and Department of Army level, and they have that for action. They're looking at all those options, potentially hazard pay, on what that would look like. Currently, the COVID environment doesn't fit neatly in any of the standard hazardous fire pay, hazardous duty pay. It doesn't fit neatly in any of those, and so that's not an SDDC decision, but that is something that the department is looking at, and I know that they have that on their radar as something to be looking into. But we don't have anything. We certainly don't have anything at the SDDC level that we can do in regards to that. But great question, and I know that leaders above us are looking
Yeah.
at that, but we just don't know where that's at in the process yet.
And that's actually the right question. We don't have the ability to make that determination at
That's
the
correct.
SDDC level. That's a decision that's made
That's right.
back in Washington.
Absolutely.
We have another operational question, and that is, are there requirements to sanitize cargo before moving or after receiving it? And what are we doing to ensure surface warriors who are still moving cargo around the globe are safe?
Right, so, protect the force, we've talked about that is it's always, mitigating, balancing the mitigation of risk to mission and risk to force. And so, again, our fourth component teammates are part of this equation as well. They've been checking temperatures at the ports for people that come in through the gates, even the stevedoring workforce. I've seen reports where those types of things are occurring at the different nodes. They're maintaining 6 foot distance. We are taking a little longer to download cargo or upload cargo on rail cars and vessels because of these different standards and discipline that we have to put in place. So it's a multi-way street, if you will, because the vessel master and his team have standards through MARAD and Military Sea Lift Command that they're adhering to. The port proper, the stevedoring community, they're wearing the proper PPEs at these locations, thermometer testing, mask wearing, and certainly we are arming our people with all the protection gear that they need and making sure they're applying the right COVID standards and discipline when they're executing. And then I go back to something I repeated or I said earlier, and that is, the right people at the right node in the right posture to deliver the right effect. So again, it's making sure we got the right amount of people at the node, spread out accordingly to be able to generate the right speed and keep the mission flowing. I don't know if there's anything more
I think that's
to add there.
Yep, I think we're following CDC guidelines as much as possible. We're social distancing, we're sanitizing where we can, and we're following those guidelines.
Yeah, in terms of cleaning equipment or wiping down tanks, I don't think that is, but washing hands frequently, making sure you're not touching your face.
Sure.
All those things are certainly in play, as we're moving big giant pieces of equipment, still through these nodes in a very active way. In fact, we talk frequently with brigade commanders and battalion commanders about this, and I have full trust and confidence in them as I hear them talk back to us that they are adhering to the things that I'm talking about.
They're just crushing it.
They're doing fantastic work, and that's leaders at all echelons.
Gentlemen, we have time for just one more question before we offer a little bit of time for closing comments. This is from another Facebook Live viewer, Trevon Patterson, who asks, in regards to the humanitarian and volunteer efforts referring to COVID-19 support, are there restrictions on the type or amount of hours that we can be involved with working?
Mike, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this question. The way I take the question is there a restriction on volunteering outside the workplace? And generally speaking, the answer is no. You can volunteer your time, your own personal time, as much as you feel appropriate, as much as you want to support humanitarian and volunteer responses to this crisis. The one thing that I would say you cannot do is endorse organizations in your official capacity, in terms of saying, I'm Mike Hutchison, I work for the Army, and I support the Red Cross or whoever. You got to keep that keep your affiliation with the Army as kind of on the down low, if you will. I think you run the danger of getting crosswise with endorsing outside organizations. With regard to volunteering time on humanitarian efforts during the work hours, you have to work that with your supervisor. generally speaking, I want to say that, you know, if you want to do that during a normal duty day, you would have to take leave to do that, and you have to work that with your supervisor.
Sir, we're nearing the close of our time available here on Facebook Live. So at this point, I'd like to transition to any closing comments that you may have before we mark the end on this.
You got anything, sir, Major?
I'll just say kind of where we began. You guys are doing fantastic. The COVID standards of discipline, we're social distancing and it's working. We're hunkering down and we're teleworking and it's working. So thank you so much for that. And then I'm reminded, I heard the SMA say in a post recently that leadership is mission essential. And so reaching out and checking on those people that are in your charge is mission essential. And so there's different ways of doing that. We can do that virtually, but that's all part, and that's in line with his This Is My Squad campaign. And with that is we're interacting with people so we understand people. We know their norms and we know how they behave. And so when they're a little bit off, we can tell. And so I would just advise everybody. It's not social distancing, it's physical distancing. You need to interact socially. And then thanks for what you're doing. But leadership is mission essential. So thanks for what you're doing, but make sure we're engaging at echelon. Sir, that's all I have.
Thanks, Sergeant Major. Mr. Hutchison?
Yeah, I want to tag off with something the Sergeant Major said, and he has said several times about social distancing and physical distancing. I've been thinking a lot lately over the last couple of weeks about the long-term effects that this is going to have on our society. I live in the middle of the city. I live in a neighborhood that's very walkable. You normally see lots of people walking around, and obviously I go to the grocery store. What I've noticed since this social distancing thing has been in place is people are afraid to talk to each other on the street, even to say hello on the street. People averting their gaze as though if they look at you, they're going to somehow get the COVID. And I try to be really conscious of that. If I see somebody on the street, I try to say hello, even through my mask. I'll say hello because, you know, I think being a little too distant and a little too disconnected from our fellow human beings for too long can get to be habit forming, and I really hope it doesn't do that. And I would ask you all to kind of keep that in mind. While we got to keep 6 feet apart, doesn't mean that we can't connect with people and say hello, good morning, have a nice day. Again, thank you for what you're doing, and everybody have a good rest of the day. So over to you.
Hey, thanks, Mike. I really like those comments, both those, from both of you. I think that was spot on. So just a few things in wrap up. As we go through this, again, I want to reiterate a couple things that have kind of been a theme through this. And one is we're going to be conditions-based. We're going to take a measurable approach. We're not just going to flip a light switch and bring everybody back into work. I'm as anxious as anybody else to get everybody back into work, and I know I get people coming in, sir, we got to bring people in because missions are ticking up and all these, and we're going to be smart about it, and we're going to do the right thing because we have to stay true to our priorities, which is to protect the force and mission assurance, and then we have to balance mitigation of risk to mission, risk to force, which links back to those two priorities, and that's going to be how we have to take the measured approach that we need to all the way through this. And I would tell you, as we begin to open things up, we're going to start at the tactical edge and walk it all the way back. So it has to be able to work at the tactical edge, which is why I'm excited about these COVID-oriented protective posture levels that the Sergeant Major's drafted up, and that we're going to get out on the street soon, because I think that'll give us a good baseline for how to work from the tactical edge all the way back up. And the tactical edge can be at a node, or it can be in your cubicle. Right, but it has to, or it can be in a collaboration room, and we all have to understand that is the tactical edge, that's where the COVID lives, and we have to be disciplined, focused, and we have to avoid complacency at all cost when we talk about that in combat as well, and that's where the COVID lives. A couple other points I want to mention. Another thing that we think a lot about is Sun Tzu. See yourself. See the enemy, see the environment, Those are the things, that's another kind of prism, if you will, of how we look at things. we have to see ourselves, we have to understand our ecosystem and what we're up against. We have to continue to try and see the enemy and watch the data and make sure that we understand how that is all starting to materialize and what states are starting to open up and how is that going to affect our mission. And we're constantly in a running estimate to that. And then we have to see the environment, and that goes back to all of this coming together. And that's, what are the policies that are taking place, what states are opening, and what's that impact going to be on the tactical edge. So from the strategic to the tactical, it's see yourself, see the enemy, see the environment, conditions-based, measured approach, and that'll get us, striking the right balance on our priorities there. Yeah, at the end of the day, speed is our organizational guiding principle. So we are focused with a sense of urgency to move at the speed of, and if the speed of COVID is one thing, we're going to be faster than that, okay? We want to still move at the speed of war, speed of assembly, speed of decision making, speed of information sharing, speed of finance. All the different speed factors are in play. Our job is to put, the right conditions in place where we can control the clutch, and we can go slow to go fast where we need to, or we can really, hit the straightaway and go really, really quick. I also want to mention that, April is Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month, and I know we've been pushing a lot of that information out to the team through social media, and I appreciate what the brigades and battalions have been doing to stay true to that, because April is that opportunity to remind us that it's about trust and it's about teamwork and it's about treating everybody with dignity and respect. And if we are going to be tracking as surface warriors, are we tracking as the campaign? It's about trusting your command, recognizing vulnerabilities, attacking in discipline, changing the culture, knowing your part, intervening now, never compromising Army values, and growing professionals. All that together, is how we're going to beat the COVID. We're going to treat everybody right. The only way we get through this is if we're latching arms and we get through it together, because that's, there's strength in numbers, and we gotta lead our way through this together. Communication will be key, and we will continue to flood the system with ways to communicate to all of you. And in the meantime, in real closing here, final thoughts, I would just say, again, thank you to all of you for doing all the right things. In fact, we don't have any positive COVIDs, right now on the active side, of our Surface Warrior Nation. We do have some in our Deployment Support Command that are, going through some tough times. 6 positive COVIDs, that have tested positive. The good news is everybody is fighting their way through that and recovering. And so our numbers are really, really good in that sense. But we're keeping close tabs with our our reserve component teammates, those surface warriors, the 2700, some up in the New York area, and they're fighting through things, and they're adhering to standards and discipline as well. So again, thank you all very much for what you're doing. We remain on the move because of what you're doing, and I would say this: stay smart, stay safe, stay strong, and by all means, stay positive out there. Thank you very much, Surface Warriors.